It's 2:30 in the morning. The house is quiet. Your laptop glows in the dark. You're not tired. You're wired. This is when your brain finally feels sharp. You've always been a night owl. It's who you are. Your best ideas come after midnight. Your creativity peaks when others sleep. Fighting it feels like fighting yourself. But what if honoring your natural rhythm is quietly hurting you? What if the night itself changes how your brain works, in ways you can't feel happening? A Stanford study of nearly 75,000 adults just overturned decades of sleep science. The findings shocked even the researchers who conducted it. Conventional wisdom said, align your schedule with your chronotype. If you're wired for late nights, embrace it. Don't force yourself into a morning person's world. The Stanford researchers expected to confirm this. Instead, they discovered something that challenges everything we thought we knew about authenticity and well-being. Night owls who stay true to their late-night tendencies aren't thriving. They're 20 to 40% more likely to develop mental health disorders. Being yourself might be the problem. About 1 in 4 people are true evening chronotypes. Their biology pushes them toward later bedtimes and later waking. This isn't laziness. It's genetics. Your chronotype is determined largely by genes that regulate your circadian rhythm. Some people's internal clocks simply run differently. Their melatonin rises later. Their cortisol peaks later. For decades, researchers assumed forcing a night owl into early mornings would create chronic stress. The mismatch between internal and external time would damage well-being. This made intuitive sense. We tell people to honor their authentic selves. We celebrate neurodiversity. Why wouldn't the same apply to sleep preferences? The Stanford team designed their study expecting to prove this. They analyzed data from a massive biobank. Nearly 75,000 participants with detailed sleep and health records. They measured 2 things independently: what time people naturally preferred to sleep, and what time they actually went to bed. Then they tracked mental health outcomes. The results surprised everyone. Chronotype alignment didn't protect mental health. The key variable was simpler and more troubling: what time you actually fell asleep. Whether you were a natural morning person or night owl, staying up late predicted worse mental health outcomes. The night itself seemed to carry psychological risk. Night owls who honored their chronotype were 20 to 40% more likely to have been diagnosed with depression, anxiety, or other mental health conditions. But here's the critical part. Night owls who went to bed earlier showed mental health outcomes nearly identical to natural early risers. Fighting their chronotype didn't harm them. The researchers stated it directly. Alignment with your chronotype is not crucial here. Being up late is what's not good for your mental health. Full stop. This held true even when controlling for sleep duration. Getting enough hours didn't eliminate the risk. The timing of those hours mattered independently. Why would the night itself be harmful? The researchers propose a mechanism that involves how your brain functions during what they call the biological night. During late-night hours, your frontal cortex, the brain region governing rational thought and emotional regulation, may function with reduced efficiency. With diminished prefrontal activity, you become more vulnerable to repetitive thought patterns. The anxious loops that spiral, the rumination that feeds on itself. Think about your own late nights. The worries that seem manageable at noon feel catastrophic at 2 a.m. Problems that have solutions in daylight feel unsolvable in darkness. This isn't just perception. Research shows that emotional processing genuinely differs during nocturnal hours. The same stimulus triggers stronger negative reactions at night. Your amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, doesn't clock out when the sun sets. But the frontal cortex that normally moderates its alarms does seem to dim. Night owls also exhibit distinct behavioral patterns that compound risk. They report higher alcohol consumption, lower mindfulness scores, and worse overall sleep quality. This creates a feedback loop. Poor sleep quality increases next-day fatigue. Fatigue makes it harder to fall asleep early. You stay up later. The cycle reinforces itself. Interestingly, night owls aren't cognitively impaired. One study of 26,000 participants found evening types scored 13.5% higher on cognitive tests. So night owls aren't broken. Their brains work beautifully. But something about when they're using those brains seems to create psychological vulnerability. The Stanford researchers recommend a specific threshold. Try to be asleep before 1 a.m. This appears to be a tipping point where mental health risks increase significantly. The 1 a.m. recommendation isn't arbitrary. Analysis showed mental health outcomes deteriorated notably after this threshold, with risk increasing as bedtimes pushed later. This finding complicates our cultural embrace of chronotype acceptance. Night owls have fought for recognition. They've pushed back against morning-biased school and work schedules. That fight isn't wrong. Research confirms that perceived discrimination against night owls accounts for 18 to 29% of their increased negative emotions. Society's morning bias is real. Early meetings favor larks. School start times ignore adolescent biology. Night owls face genuine structural disadvantages in a 9-to-5 world. But the Stanford research suggests the solution isn't simply demanding society accommodate late risers. Something about nighttime wakefulness itself may carry inherent psychological costs. The researchers suggest our neural architecture evolved for daytime consciousness. The brain's emotional regulation systems may simply work better when the sun is up. For millions of years, our ancestors slept when it was dark. Electric light is evolutionary yesterday. Our brains haven't caught up to the 24-hour world we've created. This creates a tragic irony. Night owls may feel most alive after midnight. Their chronotype makes late hours feel natural. But natural isn't the same as healthy. Think of other genetic tendencies we don't automatically indulge. Some people are wired for higher risk tolerance. That doesn't mean we encourage them to gamble compulsively. The Stanford finding asks us to consider, what if some biological preferences need gentle overriding rather than complete accommodation? What if authenticity has limits? The study doesn't claim night owls can become morning people. Chronotype remains stable, but it suggests behavior can diverge from preference without psychological damage. This is where the research gets nuanced. Night owls who shift earlier don't need to become 6 a.m. joggers. They just need to avoid the deep night hours. The goal isn't transformation. It's harm reduction. Moving your natural 2 a.m. bedtime to midnight may preserve your identity while protecting your mental health. If you're a night owl struggling with your mood, consider experimenting with earlier bedtimes. Even 30 minutes might matter. Track your mental state alongside your sleep timing. Start gradually. Shift your target bedtime earlier by 15 to 30 minutes each week. Dramatic changes are harder to maintain than incremental adjustments. Create an artificial sunset. Dim lights progressively through the evening. Use warm spectrum bulbs after 8 p.m. Reduce screen brightness. Signal your brain that night is coming. If your schedule genuinely can't change, shift work, caregiving, medical conditions, compensate elsewhere. Exercise, social connection, and limiting alcohol become even more important. Be especially vigilant during late night hours. If you must be awake, avoid heavy emotional decisions. Recognize that your brain processes negativity differently after midnight. If you find yourself spiraling mentally at 2 a.m., name what's happening. Tell yourself, this is the night effect. These thoughts will feel different tomorrow, and stop engaging with them. Consider keeping a brief log of late-night worries. Read them the next afternoon. You may notice how differently they land in daylight. Smaller, more manageable, sometimes even irrelevant. None of this means night owls are defective. You may be brilliant, creative, insightful. The cognitive advantages are real, but so are the emotional vulnerabilities of late-night wakefulness. The debate continues among researchers. Some argue late nights cause depression. Others suggest depression causes people to drift toward late nights. Causality remains unclear. What we do know, the correlation is strong, and the Stanford study controlled for many confounding variables. Late bedtimes predicted worse outcomes, regardless of other factors. Some critics argue society should adapt to night owls rather than asking night owls to adapt. Later school start times, more flexible work schedules, reduced morning bias. These changes would help. Adolescent night owls forced into early schools perform worse academically and show more depression. The mismatch causes genuine harm. But even with societal changes, the Stanford research suggests something irreducible about nighttime wakefulness. The brain may simply work differently in darkness. This isn't about blame. Night owls didn't choose their chronotype, but they may need to make choices about how fully they express it, for their own well-being. The research invites a more nuanced view of authenticity. Sometimes being true to yourself means understanding which parts of yourself need expression and which need moderation. Your chronotype is part of your identity, but so is your mental health. When these conflict, the Stanford data suggests, prioritize the hours you keep over the hours you crave. The night owl dilemma doesn't have easy answers. You may feel most yourself at 2 a.m., but that self may be more vulnerable than you realize to the darkness around you. What the Stanford research offers isn't judgment. It's information. The night carries costs. Whether you pay them is your choice. But now you know they exist. Maybe the most honest relationship with your chronotype is this: I am a night owl, and I choose to go to bed earlier anyway. Not because I'm broken, because I'm informed. Thanks for watching. If you found this useful, consider subscribing. And tonight, when midnight approaches, ask yourself, what would happen if I just went to bed?